Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And I'm
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yep, thank you for joining us again.
We always love doing this. Mom, how's your day going?
Brandon, my day is going fine. It's Saturday, so it's always a good day for a Saturday. How are you doing?
All is well here. I'm enjoying the weekend.
That sounds good. Are you ready to talk about another episode of S.H.I.E.L.D?
I sure am.
All right. And so we are on episode 8, and it's called The Well.
Yes, this one released November 19th, 2013.
All right, and I'll give a brief synopsis of the particular episode. The episode begins with a brief discussion about myths and legends and whether or not they are real or whether they're not real. They also talk a little bit about aliens and whether or not they're real also. Simmons begins the episode with this discussion and then later leads to say that yes, that there is some documentation that that aliens do exist, along with some of the people who they thought previously who didn't exist in myths and legends. They did exist years ago. So we begin with a staff being discovered, and the people who find this staff kind of realize it has some powers. And so there's a gentleman who is a professor named Elliot Randolph. And so S.H.I.E.L.D. goes to actually meet with this particular professor. He looks things up because apparently he's a leading person in this type of knowledge. He looks it up and he says that this staff does exist. And he says, but it's kind of in a mystery and where the other pieces of the staff are. And so they actually, and so that actually leads the beginning of this particular episode, Brandon.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon. And I'll give you a part two. I'll let you go ahead and begin, and then I'll give you a part two for the rest of the episode.
All right, well, that sounds good. Well, Mom, for the part of the episode that you mentioned, what were your thoughts about this one?
Well, I thought it was a little interesting because apparently in the theaters, Thor had just come out. One of the movies for Thor. I think it was the second one, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And is that correct? Okay. And so I see as they were trying to wrap in or to tie in the movie itself to Shield. And so I figured this was probably a good way for them to kind of bring in or to explain these other beings that are already exist on the Avenger side of things, but to kind of bring it further into the Shield realm that they've talked about, but not in any full depth of any sort.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was interesting that, I mean, we were tied so directly into the movie, but it wasn't like during the movie. It was like immediately afterwards.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And Mom, before I continue on with that discussion, I'll let you go ahead and head into your part two.
Alrighty. For the part two portion of this, pieces of the staff are actually found, and it is discovered that this professor is really an Asgardian, which means that he is an alien. And so the staff itself has powers. They had to, they meaning Ward and Coulson, spoke to this Professor Randolph, and the professor indicated that he really didn't mean for his story to be told, that he is the one lone, or we think at this point anyway, the one lone Asgardian who is left. And so they asked him, well, why did you tell your story? And he said he didn't. He said he met a woman who then told her brother, and the brother was a priest, and the priest decided to write the tale that he told this woman. And so that's how everything became public, was that this one tale was told and then I guess written about later. And so, anyway, for this particular staff, he indicates that when a person touches the staff, that it shines a light into dark places of the particular people, and these are places that are hidden within themselves, and so which means it kind of makes people remember things that they didn't mean to, that they are trying to suppress for themselves. And some of these places are dark places within the individual person. So Ward is the first person to actually touch the staff out of the Shield group. And so he goes into a dark place himself where he thinks about his brothers and in regards to a well. And I'll let you guys watch the episode to see what happens there. And then but he is not the only one to touch the staff. May also touches it, but she doesn't really talk about what happens with her. But when Ward touches it, it brings him into such a dark place that he starts to lash out to some of his friends. And so I guess in essence, what we talked about last week is that this episode actually focuses on Ward. I can't remember who I said last week who I thought was going to focus on, but in this case, Ward was the major person.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brad.
And yeah, last week when we were discussing this, you had mentioned that it wasn't going to be Fitz, it wasn't going to be Simmons. So your guess was either Colson or May.
Okay, well, I was so wrong. It is Ward for this one.
And what were your thoughts about, I mean, his sort of backstory? I know he didn't really speak about it, but I think you could infer enough from the flashbacks.
Yeah, from the flashbacks, what we can see is that Ward is actually with a young man who has fallen into a well and looks like a deep well, and the child is asking for Ward to help him so he could get out of the well. But yet, there's another young person who was with Ward at the time who's telling him not to actually release the rope or whatever he needs to do in order to help this child. He alludes to brothers, but they don't specifically say which one is his brother. Or if they did, I missed it, but I don't think they said which one is his brother. And it very well could be both of them are his brothers. I'm unsure. But yes, so that is the dark place in Ward's life. And you could tell he has a lot of aggression and thinking about this particular episode in his life. Like I mentioned with May, she didn't say exactly what it made her think about, but you could tell that is upset also, at least by her facial expression.
Yeah, and they do point out enough where she did see something, but she said the reason she didn't react is because she sees it every day.
Yeah, yeah, she did say that. And then Colson actually looked at it, but he didn't touch it. Um, and so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, like it seems very much like Coulson wants to see something, and actually he tells Dr. Randolph something along those lines that he wanted to learn more about his recovery process and was hoping that that might trigger that.
Yeah, he did say that. Coulson at the end does have a dream in regards to his death, his previous death, because someone brought him back to life at some point. But that's it. He just had a scene where he's in Tahiti, in which he talks about on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's a magical voice.
Yes, that's what he says, or someone says it.
Yeah, and going back to Ward though, I mean, I know throughout the series thus far that they've mentioned a few times, especially in episode one, but we haven't really visited it too much. Is that they keep mentioning sort of Ward's family history, and so the fact that Coulson at least knows something about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and because it kind of goes back to and what we talked about previously is what did I really learn in this particular episode? And I learned that Ward's past really affects him, and the decisions that he's making at this point in time depend upon his past that he did have. He has a very bad memory about the swell. You could tell it causes him to be very aggressive. And so we know that this is an important part of his life, and obviously a negative part of his life also. And like I said, his aggression just reaches out far further than people think. Sky did try to calm him down, and she did have a calming effect with him, but you could tell he was still upset. And then at the end of the episode, I will say this: that May and Ward do go into the bedroom together. You could tell that she is upset by her face, and he just kind of looks over and walks in. So we don't know really what that is about. Um, And then, like you mentioned, Colson does talk about Tahiti and apparently a bad memory because he does wake up in the middle of the night having this very bad dream about being at Tahiti. Um, and then something else that we talked about last week that it'll be interesting to see what else they do with it is Simmons, because last week Simmons never spoke to her parents in regards to the illness that she had and the fact that she almost passed away. But in this episode, she does touch base with her parents, but you could tell she's very pained by initially picking up the phone and speak with them, and then she finally kind of relieves them a little later. But I don't necessarily know if they knew that something was almost happened to her. She was just avoiding speaking to them.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought that was interesting, and I'd never even thought about it until you mentioned it. That in reference to that illness where she tried to fall out the plane.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was 2 episodes ago, but yes, and think it's always interesting that she speaks to her dad. She refers to parents, but only speaks of or to her father. She has not said a reason why or anything like that. She's just, every time she speaks about her parents, she always says, let my dad know, or he's the one who called in concern for her. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring that up later.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, find all of that interesting, and overall, like, did you enjoy this episode? What are you thinking of the series as far now? 8 episodes in.
Well, I am liking the series. It is. I like that everything connects together because I kind of like a little bit of a mystery. So I like that there's a connection between all of it, and I really can't wait to see what kind of happens and what kind of brings them together because we do have those 5, 6 people who are all together, and we're just learning bits and pieces of them. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens when it all kind of comes to a head and whether or not it'll all be during this first season or will it be seasons later in which it happens.
Yeah, I definitely am excited as well. And so, yeah, I've mentioned throughout this that I've seen the series, but I don't fully remember like the intricacies of every single episode. And so, for this one, the part I really remember is the very end where Agent Ward is going into May's hotel room. Um, that's about the extent I remember. I remember Dr. Randolph, but I don't per se remember him in this episode, so to speak.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see if Dr. Randolph comes back later or anything like that, or whether or not it's just kind of, putting in or whether or not they're just kind of laying the groundwork for the fact that there are Asgardians or aliens that are roaming the earth.
Yeah, and what were your thoughts about the episode sort of picking up where the movie left off? I mean, did you feel any disconnect since obviously, while we've seen the movie for the Dark World, it hasn't been any time since it was like 2018 when we watched it.
Well, even though the movie is touched, it's just for a minute. I think they didn't even really have to say much about it. Just having that one liner at the beginning was plenty. Because everyone who watched the show obviously did not always watch the movie. So I think that just having that one line was enough to explain that there are, in their world, there are aliens that kind of roam the earth.
Yeah, I mean, let's say I think that you touched on this, let's say, quite well, and I think for me, in seeing sort of how this early part of the series is, I think it's just kind of fun being able to revisit it, see what does or does not connect, and everything of that nature.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait till we have a discussion at the end so we can kind of put it all together.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to it.
All right, Brandon. And we thank everybody for watching today.
Yes, we definitely do.
All right, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great day.
Bye bye.